Karl-Anthony Towns is reportedly disappointed after the Knicks refused to give him the max extension he wanted. But instead of demanding out, KAT's reaction has been surprisingly different. He still wants to be a Knick for life, even as New York hesitates to pay him. And there's a reason why. Let me break it down. New York had just won it all. The parade happened. The confetti fell. Mayor Zoran Mamdani handed Karl-Anthony Towns a key to the city at a ceremony at New York City Hall. And through all of it, one thing stayed conspicuously absent: a contract offer that matched what Towns had just done on the floor. According to the Athletic's Knicks insider James L. Edwards III, it is very unlikely the organization will offer that deal, despite being a key part of bringing a title back to the city for the first time in 53 years. That's the headline. Towns delivered the thing this franchise had chased for 2 generations, and the front office is still hesitating on paying him what the market says he's worth. Here's the number everyone's fixated on. Karl-Anthony Towns is eligible for a 4-year, $272 million maximum contract extension. That's life-changing money, the kind of figure that would put him among the highest-paid players in the sport. And for a guy who just helped end one of the longest championship droughts in American sports, you'd think that number would be a formality. It isn't. James L. Edwards III of The Athletic reported that the team will likely offer a contract to Towns, though it is not expected to be worth the maximum amount he is eligible for. Edwards didn't hedge much on the will they extend him question. One thing I'm certain of is New York's decision makers will offer Karl-Anthony Towns an extension, he wrote. But the max, that's the sticking point. My educated guess is that New York will offer Towns an extension. The question is, will the Knicks offer him the max deal that they can offer him? 4 years, $272 million. That's where I paused slightly, Edwards said. Now here's where Towns actually reacted. And it didn't happen after the championship. It happened during it, quietly, and it's only now coming out. ESPN's Vince Goodwill laid out the timeline on NBA Today. Going back to the middle of the season, before the ring, before the parade, before any of the celebration. Goodwill said, go back to during the season when Karl-Anthony Towns wanted an extension from the Knicks. The Knicks did not offer him one. He was disappointed, but he says he wants to be a Knick for life. Read that again. Towns wanted the deal. The team said no, or more accurately said nothing. And his response wasn't outrage. It wasn't a trade demand. It was disappointment, followed almost immediately by loyalty. He said, these are the things that handle themselves in the offseason as long as I handle myself on the floor. The Knicks won the championship. Karl-Anthony Towns was a hub. He's expecting some resolution to that soon. That's the reaction, not a scene, not a demand. A guy who got told not yet in the middle of the best season of his career, swallowed it, went out and helped win a title anyway, and is now sitting there waiting to see if the front office finally makes it right. And it's worth sitting with how strange that timing actually is. Towns wasn't some fringe piece of the championship puzzle. Coming off that title run, he averaged 20.1 points, 11.0 rebounds, 3.0 assists, 0.9 steals, and 0.5 blocks per game on 50.1% shooting. Those aren't the numbers of a guy the front office should be stalling on. Those are numbers that usually get you paid the moment the confetti clears. Other voices around the situation have echoed the same disappointment but loyalty theme. A source close to Towns told ESPN back in the spring, before any of this played out publicly, that he so badly wants things to work here. He wants to be a Knick for life. That's not a throwaway line. That's a guy by every account close to him, actively choosing the relationship over the leverage, even while the front office keeps him waiting. So you've got two things happening in parallel. On one side, a team that just broke a 53-year curse, largely because of what this man did, on both ends of the floor in the biggest games of his life. On the other side, a very deliberate, very calculated front office decision to not hand him the number he's earned, at least not yet, and maybe not at all. That's the story. A champion who wanted to be paid like one, and an organization that decided winning it all wasn't by itself enough to trigger the max. Now we need to go back and understand exactly how we got here, because this isn't a fight that started this summer. It's been building for over a year. To understand why Towns is disappointed now, you have to go back to last fall, because this wasn't the first time the Knicks had a chance to make this right and chose not to. Karl-Anthony Towns finally broke his silence on his future with the New York Knicks, despite failing to reach a contract extension before the October deadline. That's right, there was already a deadline, already a missed window, months before anyone was talking championships or parades. Towns didn't create drama out of it publicly. He simply confirmed on the record where his head was. The dynamics of his situation were already unusual heading into that year. This means Towns cannot become a free agent until at least 2027, and possibly not until 2028 if he exercises his option. In other words, he had zero leverage in the traditional sense. No looming free agency to scare the front office into action. No other team bidding for his services in real time. Just a max extension sitting on the table that the front office could simply choose not to pick up. And for a while, that's exactly what happened. The bigger context here matters. This wasn't a front office that had just acquired a disposable rental. Towns had been traded to New York and almost immediately changed the trajectory of the franchise. After arriving in New York, he immediately transformed the Knicks into a legitimate championship contender. The franchise reached the Eastern Conference Finals in his first season, before capturing the NBA title the following year. That's about as fast a turnaround as you'll find in modern NBA history. One trade, one conference finals run, one championship. And through all of that, the front office kept the extension conversation on hold. Even mid-season, before anyone was chanting for a ring, Towns wasn't universally beloved in New York. There was a stretch where the fan base's patience was actually running the other way. Karl-Anthony Towns playing the best basketball of his career is why the New York Knicks are 2 wins from their first NBA championship in 5 decades. Something that would have seemed impossible mid-season when those Knicks fans chanting MVP for him now wanted to trade him for Antetokounmpo. Think about that swing. Same season, same player. Fans wanted him shipped out for Giannis Antetokounmpo at one point, and by the time the trophy got lifted, they were chanting MVP. That's the roller coaster Towns was riding all year, and the front office's silence on his contract sat underneath all of it the entire time. There was real substance behind the trade chatter too, not just fan noise. League sources reported exclusive discussions between the two organizations, centered on the 2-time MVP. League sources indicate the Bucks and Knicks held exclusive negotiations centered on Antetokounmpo last summer. And with Milwaukee's turbulent season, further exploration of the 2-time MVP's future is widely anticipated. Towns wasn't just dealing with a slow-moving front office. He was, at various points, a trade chip being dangled for an even bigger name. And through it all, according to that same source close to him, Towns never let it change his stance. Towns had interest in extending before the start of the current season, but didn't expect the Knicks to offer one. He wasn't blindsided by the no. He'd already braced for it. There was pressure on his game, too, that made the front office's hesitation feel less abstract. The way Towns is utilized remains a persistent debate. His 13.8 shot attempts this regular season marked a career low, while scoring dropped to 20.1 points per game, his lowest since his rookie year. Several Eastern Conference assistants have questioned how Brown's staff has deployed him. That's the backdrop the front office pointed to, quietly, as justification for not rushing a $272 million commitment out the door. A star averaging career lows in shot volume isn't usually the guy front offices race to hand a blank check. But then the games got bigger, and Towns got better. By the time the calendar turned to the postseason, the version of Towns on the floor looked nothing like the one being second-guessed by anonymous assistants in January. And that's where the story shifts from a front office stalling on a decision to a front office watching that decision get a lot more expensive in real time. Let's talk about why the Knicks are actually doing this. Because it's not personal, and it's not really about doubting what Towns can do. It's about a spreadsheet. Towns will earn over $57 million this season, before holding a $61 million player option for the 2027-28 campaign. He is now eligible for a 4-year, $272 million max extension. But committing to that kind of a deal would seriously hamper the Knicks' financial flexibility for the future. That's the crux of it. This isn't a question of value. It's a question of what else the roster can afford once that number goes on the books. And the roster around Towns isn't cheap to begin with. The Knicks already have long-term money committed to Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart. 4 max caliber or near max contracts, plus whatever Towns signs for, and suddenly you're staring down a wall the league built specifically to stop teams from doing exactly this. That wall is called the second apron, and it's become the defining obsession of the front office. From the Knicks' perspective, avoiding the second apron at any cost seems to be the priority. This isn't subtle, it's the stated priority. the filter every roster decision gets run through. And the organization has already shown it's willing to let good, useful players walk rather than cross that line. The organization has shown that it's ready to accept some losses to keep its financial flexibility secure, as it allowed Mitchell Robinson to leave in free agency. So when you hear that the Knicks are hesitant to hand Towns the full $272 million, understand it's not an isolated call, it's part of a pattern. They let a rotation center walk in free agency rather than blow past the tax threshold. Towns' number is exponentially bigger, and the same math applies, just with much higher stakes. Other players have already made the sacrifice. The front office is hoping Towns makes too. That's the blueprint the Knicks are leaning on. Brunson took $113 million less than the maximum on his extension, which gave the organization room to build a championship roster around him. Even Mikal Bridges took a slight pay cut when he signed his extension. That's the pitch. Essentially, your point guard did it, your wing did it, now it's your turn. And the front office has more than one voice pushing that same message publicly. Brian Windhorst stated earlier in the offseason that the Knicks can keep this championship window going if Towns and Josh Hart can take a slight cut on their extension offers. There's also a comparison point that's been thrown around a lot. A superstar who left far more on the table than anyone's asking Towns to. But Brunson's sacrifice has been one of the biggest talking points in the NBA, with Victor Wembanyama reportedly leaving $51 million on the table in his recent extension. The message from league insiders is clear. Winning teams increasingly require their best players to take less. The Knicks are betting Towns sees himself in that same category. Here's the thing though, this isn't a decision the Knicks can put off forever. There's a ticking clock buried in the fine print, and it changes the calculus completely. Aside from just ensuring he sticks in orange and blue, the Knicks extending KAT is mostly about getting him to decline his $61 million player option for 2027-28 and re-signing for less per year in exchange for more guaranteed money. That's the leverage play. Towns holds a valuable option. If he exercises it, he's guaranteed $61 million for that season, regardless of what anyone thinks he's worth. If he declines it in favor of an extension, he's betting on a longer-term deal. But he's also giving the Knicks a chance to lower his average annual value in exchange for more years and total guarantee. And the front office knows exactly how much power that gives them right now. The important thing to understand in this situation is that Towns is not in the final year of his contract. He will make $57 million next season, and then has an even richer $61 million player option in 2027-28. Could he opt out of that final year in search of a long-term deal? Sure, but leaving $61 million on the table and walking away from a title contender to test a volatile free agent market is a big risk. The Knicks know that and have the leverage right now. That's about as blunt as league reporting gets. The team knows Towns doesn't want to gamble his future on the open market. They know he's already said repeatedly that he wants to stay. And that knowledge is precisely why they don't feel rushed to hand him the max. There's also a market reality working in the Knicks' favor, one that has nothing to do with New York specifically. At the same time, there's no assurances that similar money is available to him elsewhere. More teams could have cap space next summer, but the list of squads projected to be within range of $60 plus million isn't particularly deep. Among those who will have that money to burn, they may not want to spend 35% of their salary cap on a contract for a big man that runs through his age 35 season. That's the quiet part nobody says directly to Towns' face. Even if he wanted to test the market for a max-level big man running into his mid-30s isn't exactly flooded with suitors. And New York's front office is fully aware of that dynamic. One insider summed up the entire posture of the organization in a single line. The era of aprons arms the Knicks with plenty of leverage. That's the era we're in. Team building math has changed across the league, and the Knicks are playing it about as coldly as anyone. But cold math doesn't erase what Towns actually did to get them here. And that's where his side of this, the part that isn't about a spreadsheet, starts to carry real weight. Here's what makes this situation genuinely uncomfortable for the Knicks. No matter how airtight the second apron logic sounds on paper, Towns didn't just show up and collect a ring. He was, by nearly every account, essential to getting one. While several players had a major role in their title win, New York wouldn't have reached and won the NBA Finals without some outstanding play from Towns. The six-time All-Star took his game to new heights during their epic championship run. That's not a marginal contributor, that's a guy insiders are saying the run doesn't happen without. The front office's own words back that up. The Knicks absolutely want to keep Towns. Management felt he was the missing piece for a title team, and they were right. Read that carefully. The missing piece. Not a complimentary piece, not a rotation upgrade. The piece that turned a good roster into a championship one. So there's a real tension sitting at the center of this. The same front office that identified Towns as the specific ingredient that had been missing for over 5 decades is now the same front office hesitating to pay him like it. That's not spin. That's the actual contradiction playing out in real time, behind closed doors on the Knicks side of the negotiating table. And Towns has responded to that tension the same way, consistently, every time it's come up publicly. Not with frustration aimed at the franchise, not with trade demands, with repeated, almost stubborn loyalty. Yahoo Sports' Vincent Goodwill reported that the Knicks did not offer him an extension before the championship season, leaving the All-Star disappointed. Despite that, Towns still told Goodwill he wants to be a Knick for life. That phrase, a Knick for life, has now come up from multiple separate sources, at different points in the year, in different contexts. It's not a talking point Towns trotted out once for a reporter. It's become the through line of how he's chosen to handle every bit of contract uncertainty thrown at him. And it comes with an actual gesture attached, not just words. According to reporting around the situation, Towns has signaled he'd take less than his max number to make the roster math work. One positive sign for the Knicks is that Towns has expressed a willingness to sacrifice some of his own earnings to stay in New York. If he's really open to a pay cut, it will make it that much easier for the Knicks to keep him around. But there's no guarantee. That's the twist a lot of people miss in this story. Towns isn't dug in on the full $272 million. He's disappointed the offer didn't come, not necessarily demanding it come at full value. Those are two very different postures, and conflating them misses what's actually happening here. Still, there's risk baked into that generosity, and reporting has been honest about it. If the right trade comes along, or Towns underperforms, it could be all the justification New York needs to part ways with the 6-time All-Star. Loyalty from a player doesn't guarantee loyalty back. The front office retains every bit of the leverage regardless of how accommodating Towns tries to be. What's also become clear is how personal this decision is for Towns, separate from the money entirely. He spent most of his career somewhere else, dealing with a very different set of circumstances. After 9 years of up and down play in Minnesota, he's found his NBA home, and it's where he wants to spend the rest of his career. 9 years is a long time to search for stability, and by his own account, and by the account of people close to him, he found it in New York, right as the front office that gave it to him is asking him to accept less than the max to keep it going. The championship run itself sharpened all of this. Before the title, the same front office had real questions about how he was even being used within the system. But once the games mattered most, those questions evaporated. Towns came here and within 2 years helped New York reach the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in a quarter century, then turned around and helped the franchise end a 53-year championship drought. 2 years, 2 conference finals caliber leaps, 1 title. That's the resume sitting across the table from a front office, still choosing its words carefully about the max. So where does all of that actually leave things heading into the next few months? Because at some point, disappointment and patience run out, and both sides know a decision is coming, whether they're ready for it or not. So here's where the two sides stand, heading into the moment, where all of this either gets resolved or blows up. Towns has made his position about as clear as a player can without forcing a confrontation. These are the things that handle themselves in the offseason. As long as I handle myself on the floor, Towns said, with Goodwill adding that the championship-winning big man is now expecting some resolution to his contract situation this offseason. The biggest reason centers on 2028. That's when Jalen Brunson is expected to become eligible for another lucrative extension. That's a genuinely important detail buried in there. This isn't just about Towns' number. It's about timing everything, so the front office isn't trying to pay Towns, Brunson, Anunoby, and Hart, all at their absolute peak values in the same offseason window. Hart has a team option in the 2027-28 season, which the Knicks will almost definitely pick up. Brunson and Anunoby have player options in 2028-29. which they will likely decline in search of their next extensions. At that point, especially if Towns is already on a new max contract, the Knicks are going to have to decide who they want to pay and who they want to let walk. That's the collision course sitting a couple years out. And it's exactly why the front office is treating Towns' number right now as the first domino in a much longer chain rather than an isolated decision about one player's value. There's also a version of this where the front office simply runs out the clock and decides it's fine parting ways with him if the numbers never align. Virtually everyone agrees the Knicks will not offer him that much and that he needs to accept a pay cut from his $61 million player option. In 2027-28, if this core has a prayer of sticking together beyond next season. Notice the framing there. It's not if Towns wants to stay. It's if this core has a prayer of sticking together. The front office has already decided the sacrifice has to come from him, not from a bigger financial swing on their end. And that's a real gamble, because nothing guarantees Towns actually agrees to it. Whether New York can count on Towns to take a discount remains to be seen. Even if he is willing to take less, there's no guarantee. His idea of a pay cut aligns with the Knicks' own thinking. The two sides could come to the table and determine they are too far apart for an extension to get done. If that happens, the Knicks would be stepping into territory this front office has specifically avoided for years. And at that point, New York would be charting an unfamiliar course. Over the years, Leon Rose and the Knicks have refused to let key players hit the open market. Every meaningful piece they've moved on before the open market got a say, trading them, extending them, or shipping them out early, rather than risking a public negotiation with outside offers in play. So if Towns actually walked into an uncontrolled free agency in a couple years, it would be a first for this regime, not a continuation of business as usual. That alone tells you how much the front office wants to avoid, letting this drag out to its most dramatic possible conclusion. For now, both sides are still saying the right things publicly. The front office insists it wants him back. The Knicks absolutely want to keep Towns. Management felt he was the missing piece for a title team, and they were right. And the roster culture around him is one insiders point to as reason for optimism that a middle ground gets found. What makes a contract in the best interest of both sides very possible is the unique group in the locker room. The team's top star, Jalen Brunson, took a sizable discount in an extension he signed last year to give the team flexibility to improve the roster. Josh Hart also signed a more team-friendly deal 2 years ago. That's the culture the front office is banking on. A locker room where taking less than max value has already become the norm rather than the exception. Whether Towns, who spent 9 years chasing stability before finding it in New York, decides to follow that same script with his own name on the line, is still an open question. What isn't in question is how he's carried himself through all of it. Disappointed when the offer didn't come, patient through a season where fans wanted him traded 1 month and were chanting for him the next. Focused enough to help deliver the franchise's first title in over half a century anyway. And still, after all of it, repeating the same 3 words to anyone who asks, a Knick for life. Whether the front office ultimately meets him with a number to match that loyalty or asks him to prove it one more time with a discount is the decision hanging over Madison Square Garden right now. The ring is already his. The number on his next contract still isn't.